So how can you have such confidence in this going to work versus past reforms?
Well, I'm absolutely confident that the system we inherited is not working. Not working in terms of ensuring we've got a decent participation rate in the economy.
Rachel Reeves claims her economic plans will save Britain, but what if they are actually setting us up for disaster? The Labour Shadow Chancellor's recent interview revealed a housing strategy with no concrete funding and an economic recovery plan built on wishful thinking. In this video, we'll break down how Reeves's glorified wish list could push the UK's debt to breaking point. If you're tired of politicians selling fairy tales as fiscal policy, you're in the right place, because what she's not telling you might be more important than what she is. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. Rachel Reeves wants you to believe she's got the magic formula to fix Britain's broken economy. But when you actually examine her proposals, they start to look less like economic salvation and more like a recipe for disaster. The UK's economic landscape is currently a minefield of challenges. Skyrocketing national debt.
And it has to be reformed, and I think everybody agrees that the current system is not working. The Employment Rights Bill, this is all about ensuring that work pays and people are supported into work.
Persistent inflation concerns and a housing market that's putting the squeeze on ordinary Britons from all directions. Against this backdrop, Reeves has unveiled her grand economic vision, but the devil, as they say, is in the details. Or in this case, the troubling lack thereof. The economic reality facing the UK today isn't just concerning. It's genuinely alarming for millions of families. With inflation eating away at wages, property prices remaining stubbornly out of reach for first-time buyers, and rents consuming an ever larger portion of monthly incomes, the average Briton is feeling the economic pressure from multiple directions. This isn't merely a statistical problem. It's manifesting as real hardship in households across the country.
So how can you have such confidence in this going to work versus past reforms?
Well, I'm absolutely confident that the system we inherited is not working. Not working in terms of ensuring we've got a decent participation rate in the economy.
When Reeves presented her economic proposals, what immediately raised eyebrows wasn't just the ambitious scope, but the glaring absence of substantive funding mechanisms. Her plan calls for massive spending, increases across multiple sectors. Yet when pressed on how these would be financed, the answers quickly dissolved into vague platitudes about growth serving as the economic engine. This approach of attempting to spend your way out of economic trouble represents an enormous gamble with the nation's financial stability. During her recent interview, Reeves's inability to articulate clear funding pathways for her housing plan was particularly telling. When challenged directly about specific financing mechanisms, she repeatedly retreated to generalities, offering little more than economic buzzwords rather than detailed strategy. For a shadow chancellor who positions herself as the answer to Britain's financial woes, this performance raised serious questions about the practical viability of her approach. The disconnect between Reeves's grand economic promises and the lack of supporting detail creates a troubling picture. Her budget proposals simultaneously promise transformative economic change, while failing to address how these changes would be implemented or funded. This isn't merely an oversight. It suggests either a fundamental misunderstanding of economic realities or a deliberate strategy to avoid scrutiny of plans that might not withstand rigorous examination. When the interviewer pressed Reeves on specific economic figures that any shadow chancellor should have at their fingertips, her responses were notably evasive. Rather than engaging with the numbers directly, she repeatedly pivoted to prepared talking points that offered little substantive content.
There is plenty of evidence from past programmes that we can do more to support people into work. You look at the international evidence, this is not the only thing we are doing. This £1 billion back to work package is just one of a number of measures we're doing to help people.
One particularly revealing moment came when she was asked to explain the mathematical underpinnings of her housing funding model, resulting in a response that was as ambitious as it is ridiculous. revealing the shaky foundations upon which her economic vision rests. What might these proposals mean for the average British taxpayer or homeowner? The implications are concerning. Without transparent funding mechanisms, the burden will inevitably fall on someone's shoulders, either through increased taxation, higher national debt, or inflation that further erodes purchasing power. The lack of clarity doesn't just represent poor communication, it potentially masks economic consequences that would be deeply unpopular if plainly stated. Perhaps most troubling is how Reeves's housing proposals could actively worsen the very crisis they purport to solve.
But when those reassessments happen, we want those reassessments to be done much more face-to-face. Before the pandemic, 7 in 10 people had a PIP assessment into work. The conversation we've already had around apprenticeships, the increase in the national minimum wage and the national living wage.
The UK doesn't simply need more homes, it needs affordable, sustainable housing, not more half-baked promises. Her approach focuses almost exclusively on stimulating demand without adequately addressing the complex supply constraints and infrastructure requirements that have contributed to the current situation. This imbalanced approach risks driving property prices and rents even higher, making housing less, not more, accessible to ordinary Britons. The fundamental issue with Reeves's housing plan is its failure to address the real structural problems in the market. She makes no meaningful mention of addressing land hoarding by developers who sit on prime real estate while waiting for values to appreciate. There's no substantive strategy for dealing with the impact of soaring rents that are pushing people further from economic centres. Without addressing these core issues, her plan amounts to little more than what one critic called blowing smoke, creating the appearance of action while avoiding the difficult decisions required for actual progress. This pattern of prioritising headline-grabbing announcements over detailed policy work isn't just a problem with Reeves's economic approach. It reflects a broader tendency within Labour leadership to offer what amounts to a half-hearted attempt at getting good PR, rather than developing comprehensive solutions to complex problems. The housing plan is as hollow as the promises from every other politician who's ever told us, "We're going to fix housing, just trust us," suggesting a cynical calculation that voters won't look beyond the surface of economic proposals. And there we have it, folks. The Labour Party's grand vision for Britain's future reduced to a series of sound bites and media performances. This interview has laid bare not just Reeves's policy shortcomings, but a fundamental approach to governance that values appearances over substance. For those of us tired of pie-in-the-sky fantasies masquerading as economic strategy, developing a critical eye has never been more essential. Next time you see a politician on your screen making sweeping promises without the details to back them up, remember this case study in style over substance. The message is clear. Until we as voters demand genuine solutions instead of empty rhetoric, we'll continue getting precisely what we tolerate.